It's the Security Weekly News, episode 311. I'm Doug White, and it is Friday, the 21st of July, 2023. We've got AirGaps, Slackware, Kevin Mitnick, Awareness, Microsoft, Bad API, JumpCloud, Megarac, Aaran Leyland, and more on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week, your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News.
Why does multi-factor authentication have to be a pain for users? It doesn't. Beyond Identity is the most secure MFA on the market and the easiest to use. They ensure that every authentication is multi-factor by default, with phishing-resistant factors that secure access from the start. Beyond Identity safeguards organizations from breaches, data loss, and fraud by eliminating weak phishable authentication factors like OTP and SMS push codes. Go to securityweekly.com/beyondidentity to get a free demo. That's securityweekly.com/beyondidentity to get a free demo today. Are you constantly thinking about how to keep your enterprise as secure as possible? Get to know Chrome Enterprise, the trusted browser for security-conscious professionals like you. Its ease of use for IT and security teams and added access controls protect the remote, extended, and hybrid workforce, keeping your entire enterprise safe. Don't settle for a browser that compromises your organization. Visit securityweekly.com/Chrome Enterprise now to learn more and start protecting your enterprise like never before. All right, it's the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. I did want to tell you, I got a ping last night from somebody about an old episode of Secure Digital Life. If you have not watched some of those, or you have people that are asking questions about tech stuff, there's a lot of good old episodes under that archive shows section on the website. Where all of the old episodes of Secure Digital Life are, and somebody had contacted me last night. So if you haven't looked at those, or you have people asking you questions, that's a good resource. Those shows are pretty fun to do with Russ and I. This week, Kevin Mitnick died on Sunday after a long battle with pancreatic cancer at the age of 59. If you're new to the field, you might not remember Kevin Mitnick, but he was one of the earliest hacker-type people who did a lot of naughty stuff back in the early 90s and probably in the late 80s as well. He was well known in the bulletin board community, and he was one of those early long-distance people that was always trying to find ways to steal long distance so they could connect to things, and did a lot of social engineering work against Pacific Bell and other countries. And at one time, he was listed as the most wanted hacker in the world by the FBI and was seriously being chased by them. They set up a big honeypot trap, and they basically attracted him to it, and he ended up doing a lot of research on that big database system that had been built, and they finally tracked him down in 1995. But I did want to tell you a couple of stories about Kevin, just in honor of him. The first one was, and I can't absolutely validate that these stories are true, and knowing Kevin, he planted them, but the first one I had was that I got to talk to one of the FBI people that actually arrested Kevin Mitnick. At least that's what he said. He was an FBI agent. I was talking to him. He said he was one of the people that went to arrest Kevin Mitnick in North Carolina once they had found where he was located. And the agent told me that when they went up to his door of this apartment and they knocked on the door of the apartment and asked the person who answered if it was Kevin Mitnick looked him straight in the eye and said, "He lives 2 doors down." I don't know if it's true, but that's what the guy said. But anyway, Kevin ended up getting sentenced to 46 months in prison and was prohibited from using a computer or a cell phone without permission of his probation officer for 3 years after his release. And well, I was at a DEF CON back in the early 2000s. It must have been like 03, 04, sometime around then. And I was at this session, and Kevin actually called into the session, and someone in the audience asked, how was it that he could use a cell phone when he was forbidden? And he said, my probation officer is literally holding the phone up to my face so that I'm not technically using a cell phone. And there's tons of stories about Kevin down through the years. Love him or hate him, we will miss having you around. Donations can be made in Kevin's memory to the National Pancreas Foundation or the Equal Justice Initiative. The links to those are in the obituary I posted on the site. Well, this second story is a report on security awareness training. Now, as Kevin Mitnick would have told you, humans are the weakest link. And while training people is worthwhile to some degree and it's admirable, this article basically says it's not really working due to social engineering being the real threat, and just focusing on phishing means we're only rubbing ointment on the open running sores, but not really figuring out how all the people in the office got syphilis in the first place. I think I added that part. But now, as a great many companies make a great deal of money by selling animated training programs where you answer questions like, when Mark asked Kelly to let him borrow her account at the bank, Kelly should A, say, of course, Mark seems like a nice guy from a foreign country who needs my help. B, ask Mark for his date of birth as a means of identification before proceeding. C, ask Mark if he's a hacker before proceeding. D, have the U.S. Navy launch a cruise missile to smoke his ass. Well, we can all guess what the correct answer is. But according to this article, after all this training has been done, there were still 21,832 complaints just about social engineering in 2022, which represented about $2.7 billion lost dollars. So why does social engineering work? Well, awareness training certainly helps people to think about if Craig Jones of Ontenu said, quote, the effectiveness of awareness training is often undermined by the fact it is difficult to cover all the possible social engineering scenarios, and people can still fall for attacks that they have not encountered before. I mean, think about it. Social engineering attacks have been going on since some Roman soldier gave all their sesterces to a guy named Ralph on a pier in Haifa in 1 BC because Ralph needed to get his bag of gold out of Israeli customs and would be right back to double his money as soon as he could get it out. I mean, people are generally wanting to help, and not everybody's as paranoid as we are. And generally, they don't think the worst of every possible scenario. They just think, let's get business done and I can go home. And that's why they get taken. So when that nun approaches you outside the JFK International Terminal asking for a lift to Manhattan, the correct answer is tear gas and run, not try and find out. Now, New Yorkers know this inherently. But the real problem means that awareness is just the beginning. McCowan of Mind Science said, Beck McCowan said that the brain is a limited capacity information processor. Some people more limited than others. But it can only deal with a certain number of things at any one time, so it filters information out and makes us take shortcuts to handle the sheer volume of information facing us. That's why people trying to find new flights so the family won't miss their cruise departure and the kids are hungry and crying because the terminal's been closed and there's no place to get food may fall for one of those fake websites telling you, I can help. Call this number and we will get you tickets at the last minute. We saw a story like that on Tuesday. So according to McCown, attackers use biases such as greed, fear, and haste as triggers to get you to bite. Now, remote working, AI, etc., all exacerbate this problem. David Metcalf said we need to use behavioral science to break this chain with cyber nudges, which are slight hassles that prevent you from immediately doing something, like a pop-up that says, are you sure you won the Spanish lottery even though you didn't buy a lottery ticket? Or are you sure Bill Gates will give you $100 just for clicking this link? It's a pretty good treatment of a complex subject, and you could probably distribute this to your people to try to help them get more paranoid like a lot of us are. It's worth checking out. Well, I talked about this story on Tuesday. Microsoft was criticized because the licensing structure of M365 meant that people with lesser licenses couldn't see their cloud security logs, especially for email. And even when Microsoft had indicated to them something had happened, they still could not see those logs. And several people complained about they couldn't validate Microsoft's claim because they weren't allowed to see their security logs. Well, in this case, that this has been in the news for several weeks now, the something that was going on was Chinese hackers infiltrating government organizations. Microsoft said that starting in September, customers with lower tier licenses would have expanded log defaults to receive, quote, deeper visibility into security data, including the details of logs of email accesses and more than 30 other types of log data that was previously only available at the Microsoft Purview Audit Premium subscription level, whatever that means. I obviously can't afford it, so I don't have it. They also said they plan to increase the default forensics data retention period to audit standard customers from 90 to 180 days. Microsoft said these mods occurred after negotiations with CISA, so good job, CISA. I mean, it's good to see somebody going in and saying, hey, let's be reasonable here. these lesser people get hacked too, and it was kind of your fault, so maybe you should give them the logs. I don't actually know what CISA said, but they probably just said bring on the beer or whatever. Salt Security said that nearly 70% of financial services and insurance companies have suffered rollout delays because of API security, and a much greater concern is that 92% have had security issues in production APIs. Wow. Time to take all your cash out and hide it in an old mattress, before you get attacked. I mean, that's terrifying. And this is just people who reported, right? I mean, how many other people said, I'm not responding to this? But according to the report, 84% of attacks against financial services and the insurance sectors came from, quote, authenticated users who appeared legit but were actually attackers. And more than 25% of the respondents said that they have no API strategy at all. 56% of the respondents said that API security has become a C-suite issue, and 79% of CISOs in the financial and insurance sector said that securing APIs has become a higher priority than 2 years ago, which is still kind of scary to me. I'm glad they're looking at it, but when C-suite people say stuff like a higher priority, that doesn't necessarily mean they're actually doing very much, which is worrisome. Mike Parkin of Vulcan Cyber said that securing APIs has become a challenge, especially for internal ones that often operate under, quote, assumed more secure posture because, it's internal and nothing ever goes wrong internally. No way, man. But, yep, time for the old mattress. But before you come to my house looking, I also filled old mattresses with live snakes and roadkill as a hobby, so you were warned if you start poking around. Lazarus Group was behind a supply chain attack focused on cryptocurrency and blockchain platforms via JumpCloud. 2 weeks after JumpCloud told customers it was invalidating its API keys. Yeah, we talked about that a bunch on Security Weekly on Wednesday night. We were talking about key validation and things like that. So if you didn't see that show, it might be a good time to check that one out. But Sentinel Labs reported that they had tied the indicators of compromise released by JumpCloud to Lazarus, a North Korean-based APT, if you're not familiar with them, but you probably are because they've been around a long time. Lazarus has been responsible for a lot of attacks, including Sony in 2014, WannaCry in 2017, which were, just some of the very high-profile attacks that they've done. They typically are looking to make money because that's how they finance their operations in North Korea. JumpCloud said that the company was working with CrowdStrike for incident response and said that fewer than 5, that's 5, the number 5, of its customers were affected by the attack, and a total of 10 devices were believed to have been impacted. So it sounds like a pretty low impact kind of thing, unless you're, of course, one of the 5, in which case it's 100%. CrowdStrike went on to say that the group called Labyrinth Colima was a subset of Lazarus directly responsible, and they have a whole bunch of subgroups. And I kind of like the name Labyrinth Colima. My next kid, look out. It's either that or Deacon Blues. I'm not sure yet. But the attackers were in the network for 2 weeks without being detected, and as such were also in the network of a subset of JumpCloud's customers for an additional week, according to Tim Morris of Tanium. So if you are using JumpCloud, it may be a good time to start looking for some indicators of compromise in your own networks because it's possible they were there. 2 more security flaws have now been disclosed in the AMI Megarac baseboard management controller, which may allow attackers to, wait for this, remotely commandeer vulnerable servers and deploy malware. The new threats have high to critical severity and include unauthenticated remote code execution and unauthorized device access with root privilege, according to Eclipsium. Yeah, that's about as bad as it gets, right? I mean, when somebody's got your server, they've got root privilege, they can do all this, and they don't ever have to even be authorized in the first place. The report said, quote, they can be exploited by remote attackers having access to Redfish remote management interfaces or from a compromised host operating system. They went on to say that the flaws could be weaponized to drop persistent firmware implants that will be immune to operating system reinstalls or hard drive replacement, among other nightmare scenarios. And those are, to me, the nightmare scenarios. Firmware implants are terrifying. We always talk about that a lot on Security Weekly when we're on there because that's one of Paul's primary area of research. But a very, very terrifying thing. So protect your management interfaces at all costs. Regardless of what you're using, you can't let people have access to these things, even internally. You've got to put that stuff on private VLANs and restrict access to it like all hell. I tells you, and I tells you, and I tells you. Well, everything old is new again. So when the interweb first got rolling, I had a lot of consulting calls from C-suite people asking if they should allow employees to use the internet or if it was smarter to just block all access to this newfangled thing that was a waste of time. They really weren't worried about the fact that everyone in the world can now access Ted and marketing's laptop because of all the porn, Ted, But now Google is experimenting with this very thing again to reduce the attack surface. And they said that they were going to cut off some of their server staffers' links to the internet as an experiment. Around 2,500 employees were selected as a part of the internet AirGap trial. And after, quote, some feedback, which I would typically call pitchforks and torches, they decided to allow people to opt out of the program or to volunteer for the program if you want to be cut off from the internet. But Google said the pilot was limited to less than 2% of their total workstation and that those participants would have general internet access removed along with any root privileges that they had. I mean, I get it. You know, an isolated air-gap system is inherently safer than any kind of live system any day, anyhow. But maybe just don't allow people to use the internet on the server interface logged in as root would be a start. I mean, I know you don't do that, but believe me, I have seen that so many times. We went in and did an audit. We pulled it up. I was looking at the logs, and I'm going, you realize how many people are logged into this machine as root right now and how many of them are actually doing something else? We had people that had installed graphical interfaces on, like, you know, FreeBSD systems or CentOS just so they could gamble. And I'm not making that up. It's not just for effect. I literally saw this. They had installed great pains to install graphical interfaces as root so they could gamble online while they were working on the server. No kidding. You know, I just play poker on the side here while I'm doing that. Well, time will out, and we'll see what happens at Google. I'm sure that if you're one of the selected people, it's not a very popular thing unless you've opted in, I guess. Well, whether he's staggering out a club at 6 a.m. in Vegas to come and work at the desk at 8 and do a great job, or creating a stir at the Glastonbury public toilet, he is always at the top of his security game, the amazing Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaran.
Thank you, Doug, for the great introduction. How's it going this week? Are you good?
I'm good. Yeah, I had, just the usual stuff. I did Security Weekly on Wednesday night, as you well know, so that adds a little bit of extra alcohol intake for the week, but it's fun.
I really enjoyed that we got to meet on Pulse Security Weekly again this week. There was nearly a chance to go on Enterprise Security Weekly to do the news this week, and I was like, yeah, who wants to hear me 3 times in 1 week?
Oh, we all do. Come on.
Oh, thank you. You're too kind. Okay, with too much coffee, today's story, poisoned Facebook ads deliver malware using fake ChatGPT, Bard, and other AI services. Recently, me alone has talked a lot about ChatGPT and generative AI. So this is technically not about what I normally talk about, but it's more about how the hot new thing is used to lure you towards badness. As we would expect, cyber criminals are recently using Facebook to pretend to be well-known generative AI brands as such, ChatGPT, Google Bard, Midjourney, what I've not actually used, and Jasper, and they're using them to steal personal information. They're doing this by they're deceiving sort of users into downloading content from fake brand sites, and maybe I can pull one up on a screen share if I don't mess it up in a minute. The downloads contain malware that steals users' internet credentials for banking, social networking, gaming, their crypto wallets, which just makes me laugh all the time because Manx is currently worth nothing. Is it ever going to be worth anything again? Who knows? Answers on a postcard. But it's all bad. It's all very bad. Most users are not aware of the situation, and they're liking and commenting on fake posts and spreading them. That's the worst bit. They're not only hurting themselves, they're spreading it to their social networks, bad users. So not only doing bad things to yourself, you also propagate it to your friends. The recent scam makes use of people's curiosity. It reminds me of when I was in the military and there was like free beer and free SEX posters, which never led to anything good. But people's curiosity about popular generative AI apps to trick them out of their passwords and sensitive data. So the bad guys start by making fake Facebook pages or groups for well-known brands and adding interesting content to them. And then the unaware individual comments or likes the content, guaranteeing, obviously, as we know, that it makes it into their friends' news feeds. Then bad users click on false pages and links, and badness happens. So when they click on the link, malicious malware that is intended to steal their internet stuff, as I've gone through, literally what they're doing is they're making fake pages that offer tips, news, and of course enhanced versions of AI, Google Bard, or ChatGPT. Because if they're not good enough already, we can just look for better things. Let me see if I can just pull up very quickly, just share my screen, and I'll tell you what you're seeing here. It's just some actual screen grabs off Facebook of what these sort of false adverts look like. I'll just stop sharing that now, but that's just some ads to show you graphically what's actually happening. Okay, so additionally, cybercriminals frequently persuade users to utilize other AI services and tools. Jesper AI, as the last picture showed, being a well-known brand, which actually has like 2 million followers online. And then the bad guys are utilizing the sort of reach of these pages to embed their links into comments and stuff like that. Us being users and everybody hating everybody and everything on the internet and everybody liking to be keyboard warriors, people are furiously debating the role of AI and liking and sharing posts. And then that's giving it further reach again, and it's wrapping itself around the world, and in amongst the noise, there's badness. Most of the Facebook pages lead to similar type landing pages, which I showed you a minute ago, and they encourage users to download password protected archive files that are allegedly related to generative AI engines. Of course, we wouldn't do that, but your family might. So maybe this is more about informing those that are less in the know, or just being careful not to do it yourself. They look good. They look really good. And once you click on it, the malware then gathers various types of information from all the major browsers. It can grab your cookies, bookmarks, browsing history, and passwords, which is bad. You just see people all the time going, oh no, my Facebook's been hacked. And it's like, yeah, but what did you do? And it's normally like, oh yeah, I've clicked on some link or something that said free something or other, or someone's been hurt. Final thoughts on that article. The primary objective of cyber criminals seems to be gaining information related to Facebook accounts and the theft of Facebook pages. And even some Facebook pages with a really wide audience might be used to propagate the fraud. And the cyber criminals take advantage of this, and they have significant audiences. So it's pushed out really wide. Bringing it further to things I see on Facebook every day, I've noted down some Facebook scams that you need to take seriously. So here in super quick fire mode, because as I mentioned before, I've had way too much coffee, we'll get straight into it. Donation scams. Fake charities requests are widespread on Facebook, often coming from copycat accounts that seem genuine. They ask for donations via apps like Venmo and Cash App, and then surprisingly, the money vanishes after it's been transferred. Most of these are just not real. Obviously, some are. Check before parting with your hard-earned cash. Giveaway scams. Scammers often have attractive giveaways to entice users into sharing personal details or clicking links that could install malware. At the end of the day, nobody's giving away a car because the wheels got wet in a flood. Use your brains there. I'll be next to fall for one, so I should heed that myself. Quiz scams. These quizzes are designed to gather personal information that could be used to hack your account. So avoid sharing details like your mother's maiden name, because this information can be used to answer your security questions. Cloned accounts, we see this all the time. Scammers clone entire Facebook profiles to mislead victims, so be skeptical of friend requests and familiar faces and always verify before accepting. At the end of the day, just give your mate a call and go, if you set up a new account, yay, nay, move on. Fake coupon codes, and they're designed to extract sensitive information like some of the others. A big one, this also happens on phones, but messenger scams. So scammers are using Facebook Messenger to request money or send false offers. Be cautious, don't share your personal information, and check if your son or daughter has really been arrested in Thailand. They're probably just down the supermarket buying milk. Malware attacks, hackers can gain access to your account by tricking you into clicking links that download malware. I see this all the time. I get them from my stepfather once a month nearly saying, Aaron, look at this, somebody's been hurt, you might know them. And then he's immediately sending out messages that he's changed his password and he's sorry. But yeah, John, stop clicking those links. Romance, job, and app scams. Be aware of fraudulent relationships, job offers, and apps that promise features like revealing profile viewers. They're just not true. And at the end of the day, I see this nearly every day. What you post on Facebook is not going to stop the Facebook algorithm showing you less ads and more friends. It's just not going to happen. Maybe we don't have enough friends. More apps, more friends, less friends, more ads. Secret Santa scams, I thought these had gone away, but apparently they're still a thing. And they play on the idea of a gift to exchange to trick users. Honestly, listen to me now, you're not going to receive cool stuff through the post. Maybe some bills for the new credit card that they've set up. Phishing attacks, it's everywhere. These scams aim to steal your login details. Always verify messages claiming to be from Facebook. And if you're worried about this, just Google how to spot scammers on Facebook. It'll tell you all about it. This is a big one. I see this every single day. In fact, the amount of times on a Facebook market scam that I write fake on it is probably 10, 15, 20 times a day. But many products listed on Facebook Marketplace can be counterfeit or non-existent. Them AirPods, phones, watches, handbags are cheap for a reason. They are Chinese clones. They're not real. And just before I hand it back to Doug in the studio, I'm just going to wrap up how to avoid these scams. Quick fire mode again. Avoid suspicious links. Regularly review your privacy settings. Create a strong password. Password 123 will not do. Enable two-factor authentication. I could lose my voice talking about this. Enable two-factor authentication on everything that you can. Validate unusual messages from your friends and family. This one, maybe ChatGPT and all the rest of them are stopping this one, but be on the lookout for strange wording or typos. That Nigerian prince does not have a lot of gold for you. Never share personal information like your social security number or credit card info on Facebook platforms. And that's it from me. Back to you in the studio, Dr. Doug, who I'm assured is neither Chinese or a copy.
Well, I don't know about that, but who knows what's really going on. There was that mailman that used to visit my mother's house all the time. But yeah, I actually, one more on that one. If you do sell stuff on Facebook or anything, Craigslist or anything else, a lot of times local police departments will allow you to make the exchange at the local police department. And I really encourage you. I was trying to sell a guitar a couple of years ago, and I put it on Facebook Marketplace. A guy contacted me, said he'd love to come by my house and take a look at it, which, is not unreasonable for an expensive guitar. And then, I was like, well, how about this? I work for the Rhode Island State Police. Why don't we? I don't really work for them, but I was like, well, could we meet at the Rhode Island State Police headquarters? And the guy was just like ghosted immediately. And I was like, that's scary. The other one was, I got the single most twisted Facebook ad I've ever seen today. I took it and I put it just to see if it was even real. I took it and put it in a sandbox. It said the perfect Father's Day gift. And of course, Father's Day in the United States was some time ago. And I didn't know what the picture was. I was looking at it going, that's a strange looking thing. What the hell is that? And I pulled it up and it was a sex toy. I was like, look, kids, don't get your parents sex toys, okay? I mean, I guess that's really modern and all, but no thank you. I'm going to pass on that. Thanks, Aaron. And finally, Slackware Linux is often billed as the oldest distro that's still in active maintenance and development. As far as I know, it is. It originally was released on the 16th of July in 1993, led by Patrick Volkerding, who is still running it. The current version of Slackware is 15 and was released in 2022. So while Slackware was not the first distro of Linux, which was MCC Interim Linux in 1991, it is one of the oldest that's still actively around. Slackware was allegedly a project that was trying to clean up SLS back in the early 90s. But today, Slackware is modern. It's been modernized. It has all the features of any modern operating system, and but it does not come with a GUI, because who needs a GUI? And Slackware users are often the hardest core people. If you want a GUI, buy a copy of Windows 11, poser. But I mean, it's an interesting old distro that's still around. It's fun to use. I think all of us probably have used Slackware at some point in time. But that's the news. Thanks, Aaron, and we will see you next week on the Security Weekly News.